So welcome today. My name is Louise Marin. So I'm from Hertfordshire Community Foundation in the training team. Hertfordshire Community Foundation has two roles in the Happy programme. So I'm just going to start by telling you about those roles and where my team sit and how we will communicate with you. So I'm not sure how aware you are of Hertfordshire Community Foundation. We support the voluntary and charity sector mainly. So whether you're a community group, a charity, a social enterprise, or a local club or individual, we are a local grant giving organisation. So we give grants across the sector, across all different types of groups in Hertfordshire. And also we have a very small training and development team. So we run mostly fully funded. Sometimes there's a small charge, but training across the charity sector for voluntary groups, mainly in for groups that provide adult services, but we are working more and more with children's services and groups and clubs like yourself. We run training, open training, online workshops, leadership. So if you aren't aware of us, like, go online and have a look, because there's probably loads of other training out there outside of the Happy programme that you might be interested in as well. I'm the project manager for the training, and through the Happy programme, I'll be the main person that you contact. So if you have any training queries or problems with booking on courses or any questions, that will come through me. But my colleague Anna, I work part-time, so there may be times that Anna's monitoring the email, and so you might deal with Anna as well. So when it comes to the Happy programme, you might also liaise with our grants team. So our grants team is managing the grant application process. Nikki Fawcett is the grants manager for the Happy programme, so you might have already dealt with her. Maureen does our admin, and so definitely later down the line when you're doing grant monitoring and sending over your policies and things like that, you'll probably work with her as well. But I just wanted to mention the grants team and the training team are two very separate teams. I can't help with the grant side at all, and they're not probably going to be able to help much with the training. We're all in the same office and work together, but they are two very separate parts of the Happy programme. So within the Happy programme, obviously the council funds the programme via the Department of Education. Heart Sports Partnership, Orla and Shelley and the others are managing the whole programme and can help you with your delivery support. HCF grants team with the grants, and then we are like an extra bonus part of the programme. We are so lucky, not all counties have got the same funding and training support that you guys are going to get. So I would massively encourage you to make the most of it. We have a huge, completely fully funded training support programme for you, not only to help you meet the minimum requirements for your grant application, but also just to support the running of your club. All of your staff are eligible to go on any single one of the courses. So we would really encourage you to filter down any training to all of your team. It's a really good opportunity to refresh all of the minimum requirements, but also, I'll go into it in a minute, lots of other supportive training courses as well. There's three things that you'll be working with us on. One is, as part of your grant application, you will have to provide a training record that lists all of your staff by name and whether they meet the minimum requirements. That will come through me, and I'll show you an example of that and how to do that next. Alongside the minimum requirements, we do run, like I said, this open training programme, loads of different courses, completely fully funded. And the final thing we're trying to do is really get a better understanding of what your training needs are, so that we can support you. And going forward, if we work on this programme, because this is the first year, that every year we fine-tune our programme and make sure that we're providing training that you actually need. So the number one thing you'll need to do, if you are successful with your grant application, you will need to submit a training record. It's actually really simple. It's an Excel sheet that I'll show you. You just need to list all of your named staff that are going to be working on the programme. before you start your delivery. If you have anyone new that joins while you're delivering your program, you just send us an updated form, but you just need to send us that form with all of their names. All of your staff on the Happy Delivery program must have had at least level 1 safeguarding children training as a minimum requirement. So every single member of your staff, if they are working with the children, volunteers or paid staff, must have had your safeguarding training. The second thing is around food hygiene awareness. If you are preparing and handling your food on site, anyone who is preparing and handling that food must have completed their food hygiene awareness training. So if you are preparing hot food or sandwiches on site, you must have had that food hygiene awareness training within the last 3 years. We're aware that a lot of organisations are having food delivered and have external catering, in which case just let us know who that caterer is. Most of the ones recommended through Hearts Sports Partnership, we already know, we've got copies of all the certificates, so that's absolutely fine. But you must also have at least one person on site who's done the food hygiene awareness, just to ensure that although they might not be actually cooking the food or putting it together, you are serving it. And so we do need to know that at least one person on site has an awareness of basic food hygiene, noticing if food has gone off, or a basic kind of allergy awareness, so that someone on site has that basic food hygiene awareness. Obviously, we have a lot of trust in a lot of the food caterers that we use, but it's having someone on site that has that knowledge, so that you are making sure that when that food is delivered to you, it is of the right standard and you're happy with the food hygiene that you're receiving. And then finally, emergency first aid. We'd like ideally that all of your staff have had this training, but you must always have at least one member on site who has had their emergency first aid training. This has actually come up in a previous program, so it may be that you have 5 members of your team and 2 of them have that emergency first aid training. You think you've sorted, but because of rotation, if one day those 2 people aren't on site, you're not covered for your emergency first aid. So you really need to make sure that you look ahead at your rota and make sure that you have at minimum 1 person a day who has that emergency first aid training. We do have someone doing spot checks. I know Heart Sports Partnership in the grant application mentioned that they might come and do a spot check, and that is something that is checked and has been checked, and where someone has fallen down before. So it's really your responsibility to make sure that enough of your staff meet all of these minimum requirements. But the good news is that we can provide it all for free in the lead up to your program and even during your program. So what I would say is get that training record, list all your staff, look at where the gaps are, and then book them straight onto training. If you have staff that don't meet the minimum criteria, we can get them trained up. We're going to have a timetable of support. So there's going to be a set timetable with safeguarding on certain days, etc., in the weeks leading up to the delivery of your program. If there aren't dates that suit you, let me know, because we can sometimes do in-house training or fund you to go on other courses. So really make the most of it. And the other thing I would mention is all of those minimum requirements, as you'll probably know, you have to do every 3 years anyway. So I would just say make the most of this opportunity, get your whole team trained up in those minimum requirements again, because then those certificates will last for the next 3 years. So you're covered then for the next 3 years. So I would encourage you to take the opportunity of this fully funded training to get all of your staff skilled up, refreshed, up to date. Even if they have some of those minimum requirements, why not take this opportunity to make sure that they're up to date with the latest guidance? We do provide that fully funded program, but I will say now it is still ultimately your responsibility to make sure that all of your staff meet those criteria. We are providing as much support as possible, and it's still your responsibility to get in early, get those dates booked in. If it's 2 or 3 days before delivery and you say, you know, we couldn't make any of those dates. It's up to you then to have found training elsewhere, or come to me to try and arrange alternative dates. The form must be with us before the delivery date starts. And if you have new staff join, it's your responsibility to then update us. Obviously, it's hard for, we're never going to be able to keep track if new people join unless you tell us about it. So make sure that once you've got that form done the first time, it's so easy to then update. So just quickly, it's just a really simple Excel form like this. The yellow sections you fill out. So on the front tab, you just list all of your staff, names, job role, and then it will talk you through the minimum requirements. Safeguarding, give us the date, food hygiene if they need it, and emergency first aid. Then on the next tab, there's a safeguarding tab, food hygiene first aid, where you just put in the details for us. We're not going to ask you for copies of your certificates. We just ask you to tick that you might have it on hand in case we need to see it. Sometimes with the auditing, we might have to do a spot check and an organisation might get chosen. We might have to provide certificates. So you don't have to provide them right now, but I would say maybe try and get hold of them, put them somewhere safe in case we ask for them. You're welcome to send them over. If you have them, then that's done. And we never have to ask you for them again. But just make sure that if you are writing down, we have had it come in where people have put down that a member of staff completed their safeguarding on this date or what have you, but the dates were actually wrong. Their safeguarding had actually expired. So do check it and do try and get hold of the certificates just to make sure that you've got the dates right. Oh, and the other thing with that is if you have a team and you are booking them on our training, you can always feel welcome to send me the form over early. So you can tick it off your list and just note down that you're attending that training. At least I know I'll be able to check that you're booked in and just tick you off that you've completed that training when it's done. So that's the training record. So then just to mention the type of training that we have available, we've actually developed a special website just for the happy training. So it's this link here, happytraining.thinkific. There's a whole website with all of the training on there. It's actually available to access now. So I would recommend noting down that website. We can maybe send out the link afterwards. Go on there, have a look around the thing that we provide. The new timetable will be launched about 2 weeks before the grant approval date, which is coming up. So the new timetable will be on there soon, but you can go and have a look at the type of training that we run. Just to mention, this portal is open all year round and you're welcome to go on it as a grant applicant and book onto any training. If you are successful, all of the training is completely fully funded. If you're not successful, we still want to actually support those clubs that have applied for Happy and will benefit from that support. We obviously want all our clubs in Hertfordshire to run to a really good standard for the children that are taking part, whether you're successful or not. So although you won't get fully funding, we do get really subsidised rates for our training from our trainers. We work for them for years and we are a charity, so we do get really good rates on safeguarding training and some of the other courses. So as long as there's availability, you're still welcome to go on the training. They just might be a very small fee. But if there is a case where you're not successful for your grant and you want any of the training, just contact me and then I'll talk you through it. Just to give you an example of the type of training and providers that we use, there's all your basic health and safety provision. All of the training is online at the moment, except for emergency first aid and the inclusive coaching, because those really need to be done in person. The inclusive coaching course is run by a disability sports coach, and it's all about how to adapt your club so that you can be inclusive towards children with disabilities. And they also touch on some learning disabilities as well. So that's more of a sort of, in-person course where they show you equipment or ways that you can teach and train. So that and emergency first aid are in person. Just to mention as well, we have 2 safeguarding courses. So if you have any young volunteers or youth workers, we actually do, there's a specialised safeguarding protecting course for those aged 16 to 17. And they just approach the subject in a way that is more suitable for that age group, because obviously safeguarding is a difficult subject. And it also talks about specialized safeguarding when you are younger, because often children look up to you and see you as one of them, and you might have slightly different safeguarding concerns or things that you might want to think about and make sure you're aware of, and how to report safeguarding concerns. So we have 2 courses, and the one for age 16 to 17 attendees, it's been really popular, and it works really well. So we definitely recommend, if you have any young volunteers or staff, to go on that course. Then just to touch, alongside the health and safety, we have lots of courses around club delivery. So different activities you might want to think about in your club. We've got courses run by Street Games. I'm not sure if you're aware of them, but they're a really brilliant charity, organisation that we're working with to run some of our courses. And we do an accredited level 1 award in developing community activities for youth at risk. So it's, like I say, such a good opportunity to get your staff accredited and really up to date with their training. And then we do our standard kind of courses on managing challenging behaviour, mental health first aid, engaging and active young people. So so much on there. So please have a look. Just quickly to mention, we also have a ready to watch tutorial section. So all of you can access right now tutorials on demand, already pre-recorded. You can watch at any time that are on there right now. So we have ready to watch tutorials on social media, marketing, how to use the Canva assets, but tips on promoting your club on Facebook, on Twitter and on Instagram. So no matter what, they could be useful for you. And they just talk you through some sort of basic tips and tricks on when you're marketing your club that are really useful. So they're on there now, and you're welcome to go and access those. And there's also, if you are successful in your grant, all of the training that Heart Sports Partnership do. So this session will probably be on there, and some of the other sessions they're running. And there's also some information about playways. So if you are successful, everything that you need to support you in running your happy club will be on this site. And just finally, just to finish off, like I said about the feedback and training needs, it is a new program. So there's lots of other things that we can support you in, and I'm completely here to have a discussion if there's anything missing. For example, a club came to me a few weeks ago. They've had some interest from a couple of children who have diabetes. So they're perhaps looking for some training on making sure that they're managing that properly. So we're probably going to put a course on for that. So honestly, if you think there's a gap in what we're offering, just tell me and we'll try and put it on for you. The other thing we do is one-to-one advice and support. So at HCF, we have a huge network of trainers and advisors across Hertfordshire on every subject you can think of that we use for our training. And so if there's a particular thing that you would like support with as a club on a one-to-one level, then we can also potentially fund that for you. So during the last Happy programme, we had 3 or 4 organisations who wanted to update their safeguarding policy. So they had a one-to-one consultation with our safeguarding advisor, submitted their policy beforehand. She has a look at it, and then you have a call. She comes back to you and says, right, this is what I advise, this is what you're missing. So if you want any support with writing any of your policies, we can give you one-to-one support. So like I say, it's such a good opportunity to just upskill your staff, strengthen your club, and make sure that you're, as fit for purpose as you can be to run a really brilliant club. Stuff like making funding applications or completing your monitoring report. One course we're going to put on, because I know a lot of clubs aren't so used to applying for grants, because it might be that you are funded just through your, your activity, or you don't really get public funding as much. So we are going to do a session on completing your monitoring report. So if this is perhaps one of the first times you've had to apply for a grant, don't worry, we also will give you support on how to submit a monitoring report and how to demonstrate your impact. So we can do small groups for that, where we actually talk you through the happy monitoring report and go section by section, and you will have an advisor who can say, you know, help you come up with ways in which you can demonstrate your impact most effectively. So I think that's covered the type of support that we give. If you have any questions, please ask. But genuinely, I'd like to think I'm quite like friendly. Like if you want to call me, just call me or message me. Like it really is a work in progress, and we just want to make sure that we're putting on the training that you actually need. So if something isn't popular, we'll take that off and we'll put something on that you do need. I don't know if anyone does have any questions, but
Sophia had put a question in the chat, Louise. She was asking if a pediatric first aid level 3 with defibrillator and CPR training covered the emergency training. My understanding is that it does, but what I've suggested is that she shares one of the certificates with you.
Yeah,
you would be able to verify that.
Yeah. And that's what people do. To be honest, it depends really on the trainer, who you did the training with and what they put on the certificate. Sometimes the wording, you know, the wording that they use, whether it's a refresher or, you know, is how we look at it. So absolutely send it through to me. Yeah, anything like that with your training. That's why it's coming through me rather than the grants team, because so that I can check and help you with that. And that's what I mean about your training record. I would suggest as soon as you get approved, do your training record, send it to me and just say, does this cover it? And then I can check it all off for you so that you know, and I can say, no, but you maybe do this or what have you. So it sounds like it would. It does absolutely sound like it would, but share it with me and I can double check it based on the provider and what their accreditation is. Okay, so I'll stop that now. Orla, I'll pass it back to you, but I'm going to obviously stick around and be here if anyone has any other questions.
Thanks, Louise. If I can just add in on that, we spoke about food hygiene training being quite important. One of the main reasons for that is obviously about dietary requirements and allergens. You may have seen in the news lately about Natasha's law. There's been a change in, it's about pre-packed food and labelling, but just kind of if you map that back to your holiday camp, if you're getting food from an outside caterer, it's your responsibility to make sure that the children are getting the right meal. So when you set up your camp on the Playways booking system, when the children register and book, they enter in their dietary requirements and key allergies, medical conditions. So you or your staff will have that information there, so you can see if a child is a vegan, or perhaps they have halal food, or maybe they have a gluten intolerance or dairy free. So it's important that on the day of the camp you have that information to hand and you're making sure that the children get the right meal. We don't have a compulsory requirement for allergen awareness training. However, there are actually some really good free training courses available from the Food Standards Agency, which I think I'll share some of the links with Louise with that.
Yeah, we do run allergen awareness. So we do run a certified course as well. And like I said, if the thing with Happy that some providers have found is that they are getting a more varied sort of intake than what they're used to as much. So you might have all these new needs that you're not so familiar with, but like Ola said, we can direct you to resources. We do run allergy awareness, and if there's something that you're something that you're not familiar with in terms of say gluten-free, if you're coming on one of our courses, we always put in a section to say if there's anything in particular, and we can tell the trainer and make sure that they're ready to cover that and train that with you. So yeah, always reach out to Orla or myself around that if you need any support.
Absolutely. Just from personal experience, I'd recommend you do the food hygiene course before you do the allergen training, because it's kind of an add-on to it. It makes more sense in that way. Okay. Has anyone got any other specific questions for us before we move on to the next section? All good? Okay.
All good.
So the next section, is that Lena?
Yeah, I'm saying that all good. You can go ahead. Thank you.
Okay. Brilliant. So moving on, the next thing we just wanted to kind of have was a very general chat and kind of give you an overview of things that you should consider when you're planning the camp. So I'm going to try and share my screen. Hopefully this will work. I've got two screens, so get the right one. It will be that one. Okay. So can I just get a thumbs up that you guys can see my screen? It would help if I could see it. Oh, it's the wheel of doom. There we go. Okay. So I just thought I'd just start with, just to summarize, if I go back one, that is just the dates of the program for Christmas. So these are the general dates. So first week from the 22nd to the 24th, 27th to the 31st of December, and then the 3rd and 4th of January. Just a note on that we are allowing some exceptions where an individual school might break up on the 17th or earlier in December. It is possible that you have had permission to apply to run a camp, for example, on the 20th or the 21st of December. Bookings for the camp will open on the 6th of December. That's when the booking platform, which we call Playways, goes live. And on that date, that's when all the parents and children will be able to see the locations of the camps, the details of the activities, and they'll be able to make bookings. Just a note, so during the Christmas holidays, the University of Hertfordshire, where our organisation, the Sports Partnership, is based, they do actually close down for a number of days. So it may be that on some of the bank holidays, we're not actually providing direct phone call support for either camp providers or parents and children. Kind of just to compensate for that as such, we want to make sure that the camp providers yourselves are set up and enabled to be independent in that sense. One or other of our team will be monitoring communications, probably through email, maybe on chat on those days, but it may take us a little time delay to get back to you. So with that in mind, what we're just to have a quick look at today and a bit of a discussion about, hopefully, is just about contingency planning and risk management for the camps. There's certain extra risks with running activities and holiday camps during the winter than there would be during the summer. We're still in a COVID situation. You have to consider bad weather, and there may be other issues where, for example, you might be using a school venue where there isn't any staff over the Christmas break, but during the summer you had a caretaker that you call on. So with regards to communications, it's really important that as a camp operator or a camp provider, that you are enabled and that you're set up to communicate with anyone who makes a booking for the activity. The Playways booking system enables that. And when you do your onboarding training for the booking system, which is in mid-November, you will learn about the different ways to use the system, about accessing contact details for the parents. And then it's really for you just to consider what you've got in place to make sure that, if there's a short notice change, maybe the time of the camp changes or the venue changes, that you're enabled to communicate that, quickly and efficiently to the parents. Just to consider with that as well is that, you may be a sole operator as such with 2 or 3 staff assisting you, is making sure that you're not the only person who can do that, just in case something was to happen, you get laryngitis or something, you can't actually talk to the parents. It's good to have some backup there from another member of staff or someone who can support that communication process. With cancellation, so if I can just throw it out there either in the chat or if you want to put up your hand and we can answer it. can anyone kind of think of any reasons why you might have to cancel a camp in the winter and the Christmas break? Any suggestions? Don't be shy. Lena, how about you? Can you think of any ideas, or you might have to cancel something?
When you don't have enough children attending, you can cancel.
Okay. I'm going to flip that and say, how about if you don't have enough staff?
Yeah.
Say, for example, on a particular day, you have a couple of staff members who maybe call in and say, sorry, we've had got COVID symptoms. I have to get a test. I can't come to work today. Exactly. So Sophia's put that in the chat. So, it may be something at short notice as that, where someone wakes up and they've got symptoms, they have to arrange a test. That takes a few hours. Hopefully it comes back negative. But in that time, you might say, well, I don't have any backup. I don't have any spare people that I can ask to assist because they're not properly trained or vetted. So you may have to, in that case, cancel the camp. Again, another one which on the presentation there is bad weather. During the winter, okay, we live in quite a temperate climate, but in the middle of December, there's lots of things that can potentially, put a spanner in the works with the weather in this country. We're not particularly well equipped to deal with snow. A little sprinkle, everyone looks out in panic sometimes. The roads grind to a halt. Your staff might get delayed on the way to work. It may be that surfaces are not safe. So if there's a few days of cold weather or something, it may be that it's, the footpaths are very icy, and you have to consider, is it safe for the children to walk to the camp with their parents, or is it safe for people to be driving on a road? With bad weather, it's really, really important. I can't really emphasize this enough, that you have a good relationship with your venue. Helen has suggested your hall or facility. So our venues for the Happy program range anything from huge county leisure centres to very small one intake village schools or village halls even. And the resources at different venues will vary, and that will impact whether they can stay open in certain types of weather conditions. So if you consider like a large city centre or town centre leisure centre, they might have the facility staff, resources and people to clear snow off a path, to distribute salt and sand and grit, whereas a small village school might struggle with that. And therefore it's really important that you've got that one-to-one relationship with the venue, and to be able to have a communication process agreed with them, and an agreed process where if things are looking a bit dodgy or anything like that, you're going to hear from them. Other things that you might want to consider besides COVID and weather, anything like that, has anyone any ideas? Maybe again on the facility side, so that again it's kind of thinking about things that could possibly go wrong. For example, happened to myself a few years ago. I showed up to a leisure facility and sports hall in the morning. There'd been a burst water pipe overnight, and unfortunately, the sports hall floor was very wet. It was damaged, and it really wasn't safe to use. In that case, again, it's communicating really clearly and having a plan in place to talk to your venue host. Is there someone on site who can help you? Is there somewhere else where you can go? Is there someone there, who can maybe support you in isolating that area but still allowing the activity to go on? But it's important to think of any different things like that. One thing I would suggest as well is that we're all very dependent on IT and technology these days, and the chances are that when you use the Playway system, when the children arrive in the morning, you'll be ticking them off on the register on some kind of a tablet or a mobile device. It's making sure that you've got a data connection at that venue. Is there a good mobile signal, for example, or do they have Wi-Fi? If you're dependent on Wi-Fi, what's the backup? So maybe having printed registers or something like that. It's really just the idea here I want to sow with the thought with you is just to plan ahead for little things that might go wrong. And this will come into your risk management, into your risk assessments, your, the policies and procedures for your particular camp. And bear in mind that might change from, maybe you're using a new venue, maybe it's a different time of year to be hosting at camp, maybe you're changing your activities because it is winter, you might be moving indoors where you're primarily an outdoor activity. But really it's just to kind of sow that seed with you about thinking ahead and planning ahead. An hour's planning now at this time of year when it's reasonably quiet might save you a lot of panic and last minute thoughts and actions on the day of your camp. So has anyone got any specific questions on that, or examples or queries about what scenarios or what they might do? Please, stick them in the chat or stick your hand and we can discuss them. Can I ask, Sophia, what venue are you using for your camp? Should you be successful with your grant application?
So we have a few venues. We work in obviously the schools within the area. So one of them is like St John's. We've got quite a few that we work in and out of. It just depends on which school gets the most sign-ups, and then we'll transfer them over. Okay. And do you work with these schools on a regular basis? Have you got a relationship there with the staff and the? You do. Okay. Yeah. So that again, that helps. It's knowing in advance. Yeah. That's great. Yeah. Helen, how about yourself?
So we're looking at running it in the drill hall in Ware.
Okay. And is that in a leisure facility or a school?
It's a village hall in Ware Town Centre. It's got a huge sort of sports, well, I say it's gym, and it's got like little classrooms as well. So we've got a few sites around Essex, but we're looking to maybe run this as a trial in Hertfordshire. Okay, that's great. So you've got examples there of two different types of venues. As I said, it's really important at this stage. I'd really encourage you just to sit down with the facility manager, whether that's the school or the sports centre, and just have a chat with them about what their policies are. So some venues, for example, will have a set policy. If there's a certain type of weather or there's a certain incident happens, that they will close automatically. That's their policy. Others will be more, play it by ear and, be really specific about situations as to whether they close or won't or open or not. So it's really, I think, important. I can just encourage you to have those conversations early, and to be prepped and ahead. Lena, can I ask what kind of a venue or facility that you would be using for the program if you're successful?
Actually, I'm in contract with Beaumont School now. We're having a launch, like open day on November 6th. And I would like to try their facilities and see how can I use them. Okay. Because they have a large sports hall, which is good for all the activities we do.
That's great. Just to be aware with that, I'll throw it in that over the Christmas break, a lot of schools go into what we call like a hard shutdown. So you may have access to the facilities, and that may be that they give you a key or someone opens up in the morning and closes up in the afternoon. But there may not be staff there on site during the day, like a maintenance team or a facilities team. So, again, make sure you have those conversations and you agree a proper process with them should something go wrong or they need to contact you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
To mention, if I'll just mention now, we did a really similar course on this type of thing in the last summer program, but just through listening to this conversation. So we will put on a course around contingency and risk management for your club to talk you through things that you need to think pre-planning, during and post happy program. So keep a lookout. I will put on a workshop on that as well, just to help make sure that you've looked at risk management and your planning and make sure you've had a think about everything you need to. So we will probably put on a course like that as well.
Thanks, Louise.
I think it's worth mentioning, the big elephant in the room with COVID at the moment. Obviously, the situation is changing globally and nationally. We don't know where we'll be come December, but it's worth thinking about just even basic precautions, like thinking back to what we were doing a few months ago. Certainly, we're going to be, encouraging the regular hand washing and hygiene and cleaning down, surfaces and everything else. I think that's just part of daily routine at this point. It might also, we also would definitely encourage your staff to be doing the regular lateral flow tests twice a week, just to, if we can pick up people who are asymptomatic, it will help stop the spread as well. Those tests are still freely available through the NHS. You can order them online and have them delivered to your home, or you can pick them up from test centres. As well as that, with COVID, just a few simple practical things that we picked up from the summer. For example, when children arrive to the camp in the morning, have a little verbal kind of questionnaire or just a bit of observation. So, when a child is dropped off by their parent, a little quick question as to, hi, how are you today? How are you feeling? If the child answers, oh, I don't feel very well, I've got a temperature, little alarm bells might start to ring. It might be then that you have a conversation with the parent about, well, is it appropriate to take the child onto the camp that day if they have symptoms, whether that's a temperature or a cough or something else. That decision would be up to you ultimately, and we would hope that someone wouldn't bring a child or try to leave them at camp if they have COVID symptoms and they haven't had a test to check that that's not COVID, so PCR testing. As I said, who knows what the situation will be and what the government guidance will be at that time, but it's important that you monitor that closely, so through the local public health teams and national guidance, and follow that line.
Yeah, Hertfordshire County Council, as they are involved, they do often give us the latest updates, and I do try and get all the latest updates so that we can include it in our training. So we'll potentially have that somewhere on the website as well. But obviously it's on you to make sure that you're up to date with the latest guidance, but we will try to always keep that as up to date as we can as well, and include it as part of our health and safety training.
Yeah, that's great. And obviously, if there's any major changes, we will try and communicate that directly to you as such, or point you in the direction of the new guidance. Kind of just to finish up, really, because I'm more on I suppose more of a positive thing, is like, things may go wrong or they may happen, but generally these things are very easily manageable if you just think ahead in advance. So just some ideas on adapting your activities and planning ahead. I'm not sure if you're the activities from the participants today as to whether they're mainly outdoor or indoor based. But if you are planning outdoor activities, having an indoor space, like a sports hall or a classroom or a room where things can switch to, is obviously a big advantage. For your programs, you'll need to have an indoor space anyway where the children can eat a meal or eat their lunch. So it might be just thinking about how you can use that space. If you're running a football camp on a massive football pitch, you've got 20 children taking part, you might think, oh, what am I going to do if the pitch is flooded or waterlogged? Take them into the room where they're due to have their lunch, clear away tables and chairs, and you can do maybe some fitness training or something with them instead, or turn it into a dance class, or there's lots of activities and physical activity they can do in a very small space or on the spot or even seated with the children.
Sorry, this is the training session, so I'm allowed to push what we do, aren't I? And I think all is gone, so I have to step in. But just to mention, Street Games do that really good course on fun activities. And as it's winter, we'll ask them to cater it to indoor activities. And they literally have this pack, like this free resource you get that they normally charge for, that's like a PDF with just loads and loads of games and activities. So yeah, we'll try and make sure it's catered towards indoor as well if you have to go indoors.
Absolutely. I was just going to say as well, if you look on the Happy website, we've got links there to hundreds of enrichment activities, both indoor and outdoor. But there's endless ideas there with links to organisations like Street Games and others, where you can get lots of ideas for doing games with children at short notice in a small space. what I was going to suggest as well is maybe just have a little box to the side, have a, a box with quizzes, with games, with word searches, with craft ideas. Some you can plan ahead with these activities, or just have them ready to go in case it you look out the door and it's not suitable to go outside, or something else. But just a few little resources really that you can throw in at short notice to keep the young people happy and entertained. Okay. So, Louise, is there anything else you wanted to add in at this point?
I could go on for hours, but I think we've overrun. So I'll leave it for now.
Fine.
That the Happy website will be updated, and you'll get sent the link if you're successful anyway. And then I'll tell you all about everything we do then again. But that's okay for now.
Great. Any questions from the participants on the call?
No, thank you so much. That was very helpful.
It's great. Thank you for joining us.
I look forward to seeing you all registered at some of the courses, and I'll say I remember them from the session. Good luck.
Thank you so much. Thank
Okay.
you. Have a good day.
Yeah. Good luck, everyone. Thanks very much.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks, Ola.
Yeah, thanks very much, Louise. That was great.